This is the Washington Times front page for Tuesday, November 29th, 2022. Thanks for joining us. I'm George Gerbo. President Biden is urging Congress to impose a labor agreement brokered by his administration on railroad companies and unions to avert a potentially crippling strike. Jeff Murdoch reports Biden said he would usually side with the right to strike, but a railroad strike presents a special case. The Biden administration negotiated the deal in September, but 4 influential railroad workers' unions rejected it, giving the two sides less than 2 weeks to avoid a strike before a December 9th deadline. All of the unions have to agree to the terms to ratify a deal. Union officials have warned that an agreement is increasingly unlikely and said the proposed deal is unfair. They said they wouldn't approve the agreement because it lacks sick days and continues to penalize workers for taking sick time. Geopolitical tensions and questions of human rights violations in Iran will loom large when the Iranian and U.S. men's soccer teams face off in one of the most anticipated games of the World Cup in Qatar. Iran's divisions were on display Friday in a match against Wales. Many fans used the match as a platform to protest the Iranian regime by wearing t-shirts, painting their faces, and waving the Iranian flag without the Islamic Republic emblem in a symbolic rejection of the regime. Protests are tied to the arrest and death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini on September 16th while in the custody of Iran's morality police. The demonstrations have sparked severe government crackdowns in recent months. The U.S. men's national team waded into the conflict over the weekend, temporarily displaying the Iranian flag on its social media sites without the emblem of the Islamic Republic. Team officials said Sunday the emblem was removed to show support for the women in Iran fighting for basic human rights. The post was removed amid backlash from state-affiliated news outlets in Iran. The stakes on the pitch are just as high as they are off of it. Each nation needs a win to advance from the group stages into the knockout rounds. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy is battling a handful of disgruntled conservatives who want someone else to govern their thin majority next year, putting his quest for the speakership in jeopardy. Susan Ferricchio reports 5 Republicans say they'll refuse to vote for McCarthy on January 3rd when Democrats and Republicans vote for the speaker in a House joint session. With 218 votes needed to win, that number is just big enough to deny McCarthy the gavel. The dissident members are backed by the Freedom Caucus, which wants significant changes in the House rules to restore more power to rank-and-file lawmakers and put an end to excess government spending. McCarthy has shown little enthusiasm for the rules changes. Among them are the restoration of the motion to vacate that would make it easier to remove the speaker, and another that would prohibit large combined omnibus spending packages that Congress typically enacts every year to fund the government. You can read all of these stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page. You can also find our entire lineup of news, commentary, and sports podcasts at WashingtonTimes.com/podcasts. As Republicans plan to ramp up investigations into the Biden administration when they take control of the House, so too have Democratic allied groups digging into the backgrounds of the investigators. Carrie Pickett reports one of the 3 organizations, Facts First, is led by David Brock, a former self-described Republican hitman who went on to become a high-profile operative within the Democratic Party. They've hit Kentucky Republican Congressman James Comer, reminding the media of accusations from his college girlfriend that he mentally and physically abused her while both were students at Western Kentucky University in the early 1990s. They've also highlighted allegations that Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio was negligent in responding to sexual abuse claims from students when he was the wrestling coach at Ohio State University. A Facts First spokesman told Kerry the opposition research is to push back on the hypocrisy of those doing the investigations and/or the Republican leadership for their choices. And finally, gaps along the southern U.S. border with Mexico are personal to Jim Chilton, whose grazing lands cover 5 miles of the boundary in Arizona. Stephen Dinan talked with Chilton, who says people in camouflage walk through his lands with the assurance that they're not likely to be caught as they look to catch a ride further east to Tucson. He says the crossers are tracked by cartel scouts, some on the Mexican side and others camped out on hillsides in the U.S., radioing positions of Americans to the smugglers so that they can avoid capture. Find all of today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or on the Washington Times app, and find us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Washington Times in your favorite podcast app. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Wash Times for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.